The library was as still as water in a crystal glass. The third-floor room in Building B always remained quiet in the late afternoon, when most students had trickled down to the courtyard or left campus entirely. Only the occasional tapping of keys and soft page-turning echoed like the breath of a sleeping city. In the farthest corner, near a window overlooking the herb garden, Arya hunched over a Virginia Woolf book, scribbling notes with fleeting glances at her dim laptop screen. Her dark brown hair was loosely tied, a few strands falling across her cheek. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held something unnamed, a hunger for knowledge, or perhaps a loneliness rooted too deep. She didn't notice the figure standing behind her. Your explanation here is strong, but it could benefit from more post-war context. A warm male voice, slightly raspy like twilight smoke. Arya startled and looked up. It was Professor Elijah Monroe, lecturer in modern literature, a man whose eyes always seemed to read more than just words. "I didn't think you'd read that blog post," she stammered. "I read anything with Arya Vaughn's name on it." He smiled faintly and placed a book on the table. A tension formed between them, then stretched and taut like a drawn bowstring. Her heart raced, not from surprise, but from the way his gaze pierced through her facade of innocence. "I have a bit of time. Want to discuss your paper further?" She nodded. They sat across from each other, two intellectual reflections, mirrored in thought. But underneath, something else stirred, something neither dared name. The discussion lasted over an hour. When the clock neared 6, Arya packed up, while Professor Monroe left first, not without saying, "If you're interested, my office is open at 4 tomorrow." The literature department office lay at the end of the second-floor hallway, marked by a frosted glass panel and a brass doorknob worn smooth. With time, Arya arrived 10 minutes early. She stood outside, fingers grazing a scratch in the wood as a way to stay calm. She knew this wasn't just a paper review. Inside, golden light warmed the shelves. He stood with his back to her, sleeves rolled up, pouring tea into 2 porcelain cups. The room smelled of old books, black tea, and something distinctly masculine. "Right on time," he said, offering her a cup. They sat across from each other, discussing, reading aloud, then falling into silence. It wasn't awkward, but dense, as if one more glance could ignite everything, and it did. Their first touch wasn't planned. Their hands brushed while reaching for the same manuscript. Their eyes met and didn't part. The kiss came from a shared breath of restrained desire and breaking ethics. His lips tasted like bitter tea and warmth. Her hand trembled on his shoulder. He pressed her against the shelf, breath uneven yet murmuring, "Arya, if you don't want this, I'll stop." She didn't answer. She pulled him closer, sealing another kiss. Clothes didn't fall in haste. Each button, each layer, was removed slowly, like peeling back defenses forged over years. Their bodies moved in silence. Only the creak of wood, the friction of skin, and gasps filled the room. Words weren't needed. In that moment, Arya knew she had crossed a line that no one could uncross. What followed became a secret game. They passed each other in hallways with fleeting looks, a brush of hands while exchanging documents, a note tucked inside a book spine. Friday, after class, seminar room 4. That room on the 4th floor hosted small lectures. That Friday, it was empty. Arya arrived last, pulse racing from forbidden excitement. The room was dim, curtains drawn. Professor Monroe stood by the table, jacket gone, sleeves rolled, tie loose. He didn't speak when she shut the door. He walked to her. His kiss this time was urgent, addicted. He lifted her onto the table, hands in her hair, drawing her in. Buttons popped with abandon. Everything was rushed, hungry as if a second's delay would break them, would creaked beneath them. Moans, stifled by deep kisses. She felt his rhythm powerful, desperate, and in that chaos, she saw the man beneath the professor. A week later, the National Literature Conference took place in a hotel 3 hours away. Arya, as a top student, attended. Professor Monroe led the group Monday night after the final panel. She received a message: room wait to Santa 10:45 p.m. Doors unlocked. Her emotions twisted as she entered, anxious, yearning, guilty. But when she saw him leaning by the window, city lights reflecting in his eyes, all thoughts vanished. No words, only a long look and soft steps toward each other. He cupped her face, kissing her forehead, eyelids, then lips gently, deeply. Like someone who'd waited lifetimes, they undressed each other slowly, memorizing every detail. The hotel sheets bore their prints. She gasped as his lips traveled down her body. His hands explored her like long-lost territory. Every motion marked her with invisible ink. When he entered her, distance dissolved. She was no longer just a student. He was no longer just her teacher. They were two fugitives escaping rules and labels, living in a moment that felt more real than anything. That night, under the dim hotel light, Arya was no longer the literature girl. She became a woman in his arms. The morning after the hotel night, Arya woke up in unfamiliar warmth. White sheets, half-pulled curtains, early sunlight casting a glow on the bare back of the man standing at the window, coffee in hand. She didn't need to look closely. She knew it was him, Professor Monroe, the man who, just hours before, held her like the world could collapse at any second. She slipped out of bed, a thin towel loosely wrapped around her marked skin. She said nothing, only walked to him and gently rested her forehead against his broad shoulder. His heartbeat was steady but heavy. "Do you regret it?" he asked without turning. She didn't answer, because the truth was, she didn't have a name for what she felt. Was it ecstasy, guilt, or a blind yearning to be loved as a real woman? Back at campus, everything was normal, or tried to be. Arya couldn't look him directly in the eye during class, but there were moments their eyes met, fleetingly, and it was enough to tighten something in her chest. 1 week passed, then 2, then 3. The days after the conference became a suffocating blur. Every lecture played out under a forced calm. Every glance between them felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm. One late afternoon in the library, she found a note, wedged between the pages of a book. "Every game has an audience. Are you sure you're hiding well enough?" Her heart froze. No name, no signature. Just black ink on white paper, but enough to make her blood run cold. Someone knew, and they were watching. Monroe got her message at 10 p.m., just for words. "Someone is watching us?" They met in secret at a roadside cafe no students frequented. He was 5 minutes late, wearing a dark cap and coat. His face was tight with tension she hadn't seen before. "It might be Rachel," he muttered, voice rough. "She's been my assistant for years. She's noticed things, and she's never tried to hide her interest." Rachel, sharp-eyed, coldly quiet, always proper. But maybe that's what made her dangerous. Arya felt a chill spread down her spine. "What do we do?" Monroe looked at her for a long moment, then said only, "Be careful, and don't let anyone see us together again." But forbidden things always burn brighter. After that night, their meetings became quicker, riskier in stairwells, in the document archive, even backstage behind the auditorium curtain. Fleeting touches, breathless kisses, frantic fiery encounters, like every one might be the last. Arya grew used to living on the edge between love and fear, joy and dread, but she couldn't stop. Every time she left his arms, she felt less like herself. One day, she returned to her apartment to find an envelope at her door. Inside were 3 photos. 1, her exiting the literature department office. 2, Monroe's hand on her lower back in a deserted hallway. 3, a distant shot through the hotel's glass conference room door, with one line scribbled underneath: "Forbidden love always has a price. Are you ready to pay it?" The autumn wind howled through her window. Arya slammed it shut, hands shaking. She dropped onto her bed, burying her face in her palms. Things were spiraling. A message buzzed on her phone. It was Monroe. "Are you okay?" "Don't act rashly," she replied. "They have photos. They're threatening me. I can't breathe." He called immediately. His voice was low, urgent. "We need to find out who's behind this. Don't be alone. I'll protect you." The next day, Arya attended class as usual. Rachel, his assistant, wore a crisp blue blouse and moved like a winter breeze. When their eyes met, Arya felt something unspoken, not a simple glance, a warning. That afternoon, Rachel approached her behind the lecture hall. "No one else around. There are some academic lines that shouldn't be crossed," she said coolly. Not because of morality, but because of consequences. Arya said nothing. Rachel walked away, never looking back. That night, Arya came to Monroe's apartment for the first time. No hotel, no office. A real place lived in. His home was neat, shelves lined with old books and literary prints. Under warm lights, he held her in a deep, shaking embrace. "I'm scared of losing you," he said. "I don't want to stop," she whispered, eyes glossy. And that night, for the first time, they made love, not out of urgency or fear, but because they needed to feel something real. She cried in his arms, not from terror, but because she knew they had gone too far to ever go back. The air was different now. Even the sound of heels against the corridor floor felt sharper, more threatening. Arya walked through campus as if someone was always a step behind her. She couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on her, even in the quietest corners of the university. Professor Monroe had grown more distant, too. Not out of indifference, but out of fear. They both knew their fragile secret was a time bomb, ticking faster with each passing day. And then, the third player appeared. Her name was Ivy. She was a transfer student older than most undergrads, with a past no one really talked about. She had intense green eyes, and a voice like silk laced with poison. And she was sharp. Too sharp. Ivy first spoke to Arya after class, asking casually about Professor Monroe's teaching methods. Nothing alarming, nothing strange. But the way she looked at Arya, too focused, to knowing, sent a chill crawling up her spine. Soon, Ivy was everywhere, in the library at the same time, asking pointed questions during lectures, subtly inserting herself in conversations about ethics, boundaries, and power dynamics. Arya's instincts screamed, "She's not just curious, she's digging." One evening, Monroe sat at his desk, eyes scanning a file Arya had never seen before. She noticed it by accident, a tab marked I. Vance, internal review. "Who's that?" she asked. He hesitated. "Ivy Vance." She filed a formal complaint against a professor at her previous university. The man was fired. No trial, just a review and an exit. Why is she here now? Because she got a scholarship to continue her degree here. In our department, Arya swallowed hard. She knows or suspects. Then we're already exposed, Monroe whispered. Things escalated fast. Arya began receiving anonymous texts again, this time, not warnings, but accusations. Photos from new angles, snippets of conversation that could have only been recorded in private. "How many rules have you broken today, Arya? Does he love you enough to lose everything?" Arya changed her number twice, but the messages kept coming. The confrontation came one rainy Friday. Ivy cornered her outside the faculty lounge. Her voice was soft, almost pitying. "You think you're the first girl he's touched, don't you?" Arya's breath caught. Ivy stepped closer. "He was with my friend 3 years ago. She trusted him too. Thought he was different. But when things got risky, he let her fall alone. I won't let that happen again." Arya stared, frozen. "Don't trust the hands that cradle you in the dark," Ivy said. "Because when the lights come on, they're the first to let go." That night, Arya broke. She showed up at Monroe's door, rain-drenched and shaking. "Is it true? Have there been others?" He hesitated. "Before you, ... there was someone, but it wasn't like this. Nothing has ever been like this. Then why do I feel like I'm disposable?" He didn't answer, and in the silence, something cracked. They didn't see each other for 5 days. But on the 6th, he left a letter in her mailbox. "I'm not innocent. I never claimed to be, but I have never loved someone the way I love you. If you walk away now, I won't stop you. But if you stay, we fight this together, whatever comes." Arya didn't reply. Instead, she packed a bag, left campus, and took a train to her hometown. She needed clarity, she needed distance. But even as the train rumbled through miles of countryside, her fingers kept touching the corner of his letter. She had a choice. And Ivy wasn't finished. The wind in Arya's hometown was colder than she remembered. It carried an edge that stung her cheeks and made her feel 12 again, small, unsure, invisible. But invisibility was a gift now. No eyes tracking her, no hidden lenses or whispers. For 2 days, she stayed inside her childhood bedroom, The posters still hung on her walls, frozen in time. She needed the silence to think, to remember who she was before Monroe, before the fire Ivy lit beneath her skin. By the third morning her phone buzzed. A new number, still hiding. I thought you were braver than that. No name, no sender. But she knew Ivy had reached across counties, across cities, across any imagined safety. And the message wasn't just a jab. It was a declaration. You can't outrun me. Back on campus, Monroe sat alone in his office. His lectures had grown mechanical, his eyes vacant. He hadn't heard from Arya in days. Rachel had noticed. You look like someone dying by degrees, she said, not unkindly. She's not just a student, is she? He didn't reply, but silence, Rachel had learned, was its own admission. She sighed, standing. You have enemies, Professor. Some wear pretty smiles and hide knives behind perfect diction. I hope you know which ones to fear. Meanwhile, Ivy had begun her own quiet campaign. She didn't speak openly. She didn't accuse, she suggested. Whispers in hallways, loaded questions in seminars, an eyebrow raise here, a pause there. Isn't it strange how often Arya stayed after class? Did you see how Monroe looked at her during that presentation? I wonder if favoritism affects grading. No one believed it at first, but repetition breeds suspicion, and Ivy knew exactly how to plant seeds. Arya returned on a Thursday. The moment she stepped off the train, she felt the shift, not one of healing, but of bracing. The final act was coming. She didn't call Monroe. She didn't even go to class. Instead, she found Ivy in the library, at their usual table. She dropped a photo envelope in front of her. Inside, pictures of Ivy in the dean's office. Ivy speaking to Rachel. Ivy slipping something into a department mailbox. Arya's voice was low, cold. You're not the only one who knows how to follow shadows. Ivy didn't flinch, but her jaw tightened. You have no idea what he's capable of, and you. Are you the judge now? The executioner. Ivy stood, leaning in close. He ruined someone I loved. I'm just evening the scales. Arya shook her head. Then you're not after justice. You're after revenge. And you don't care who you destroy along the way. Ivy smiled faintly. I never claimed to be kind. That night Monroe knocked on Arya's door. She let him in. He stood there, eyes raw, unshaven, older. They've started an internal investigation, he said. There will be hearings. They may revoke my tenure. Arya reached out, touched his hand. Then let's tell the truth. Together, his voice cracked. What if it ends us? She shook her head. If it does, then we were never real to begin with. They held each other as the storm outside built, not from lust, but from love finally forced into the light. Part 5. Fallout. The storm didn't stop. For 2 days, wind clawed at the windows of Arya's dorm, while campus seemed to hold its collective breath. Rumors had spread like ink in water, slow, unstoppable, and staining everything. The internal investigation had officially begun. Professor Monroe was placed on administrative leave. His name vanished from the faculty directory overnight. Students whispered in halls, gossiped in cafes, messaged in encrypted group chats, and Arya, she became a ghost in her own skin. She sat alone in the common area, clutching a cup of untouched coffee. Her phone buzzed again. Dozens of missed messages. Half from Monroe, the other half from Rachel, who now spoke in riddles, careful not to leave traces. But one message stood out. A new number. You should have let him fall on his own. Now you fall with him. No name, no signature. But Arya knew. Ivy had gone from shadow to threat. Monroe sat in a bare conference room, flanked by 2 compliance officers. His hands, usually steady when holding a piece of chalk, now clenched the arms of the chair. Professor Monroe, did you engage in an inappropriate relationship with a student currently enrolled in your class? The words cut like scalpels. He looked up, calm but resigned. I did. Gasps echoed behind the glass. Back in the dorm, Arya opened her laptop. She had a plan now, not to hide, but to reveal everything. On her terms, she recorded a video, no filters. No script. Just her, looking straight into the camera. My name is Arya Lynn. I'm a student at Eastbridge University. And yes, I was in a relationship with Professor Monroe. She paused. But it wasn't coercion. It wasn't manipulation. It was love, real, messy, wrong by some standards, but honest. And if anyone wants to reduce me to a victim or a seductress, you'll have to listen to my story first. The video went viral within hours. Some called her brave, others called her delusional, but the most important thing, it made people listen. Rachel came to see her the next day. She closed the door behind her, sighed, and sat. That was a bold move. Arya sipped water, her hand steady. It was the truth. Rachel nodded. It also exposed Ivy. Her entire case relied on the assumption that you were hiding something. Now, with the air cleared, she's just another person with a grudge. Arya blinked. You believe me? Rachel tilted her head. I believe you didn't deserve to be hunted. Doesn't mean I think it was wise. Fair enough. Ivy was called in next. Unlike Monroe, she denied everything. Denied following Arya. Denied the anonymous messages. Denied slipping photos into the mailbox. But someone had been watching her too. A janitor. Cameras. Witnesses. Who remembered a green-eyed girl always just passing by. The scales began to shift. Monroe was cleared of coercion, but not of ethical misconduct. The university gave him a choice. Resign quietly or face formal termination. He chose to leave, not for shame, but because he had finally stopped hiding. Arya waited for him outside the administrative building. His last day, he stepped into the light box in hands, and saw her waiting beneath the gray sky. I thought you might hate me, he said. She walked up, took the box from him, and smiled faintly. I thought I might too, but I don't. He looked down. You sure? She nodded. Because everything we did in the dark, we now face in daylight. They didn't kiss, they didn't need to. Because the fallout wasn't the end, it was just the honest beginning. Part 6. Reckoning. The first day after Monroe left Eastbridge was eerily quiet. Arya sat on the edge of her bed, the weight of her choices settling into her bones like winter. The walls of her dorm room, once vibrating with stress and secrets, now simply stood still. She scrolled past the headlines. Scandal at Eastbridge ends in resignation. Professor Monroe breaks silence, and most piercing of all, student speaks out. It was love. She had spoken the truth, and now there was nothing left to hide behind. But there was still Ivy. Ivy hadn't disappeared. If anything, she had grown quieter, more careful. Her name hadn't been dragged through the mud like Monroe's. No disciplinary action. No official notice. The university, already bruised from one scandal, seemed reluctant to chase another. Arya knew Ivy would make one final move. She just didn't know what form it would take. Monroe moved to a quiet town in Vermont. He took up freelance editing jobs, taught the occasional private seminar over Zoom, and slowly learned to live without the institution that once defined him. Every night he wrote to Arya, not emails, letters, some short, some long. All sincere. She kept them in a shoebox beneath her bed. She hadn't replied, not yet. 2 weeks later, Ivy sent an invitation, not a threat, not an ambush, an invitation. It arrived by mail, elegant script on soft cream cardstock. You're cordially invited to the final conversation. No address, just a time. Arya almost didn't go, but curiosity, that ancient ache, drove her. She arrived at a small cafe just off campus. Ivy was already there, sipping tea like nothing had ever happened. You look less hunted, Ivy said, by way of greeting. You look unchanged, Arya replied. They sat in silence for a while. Then Ivy began. Do you know what it's like to lose someone because they trusted the wrong person? Arya folded her hands. Do you know what it's like to trust no one and drown? In that too, Ivy blinked. I didn't want to destroy you. Just him. Then you failed twice. Silence. He ruined my friend. Left her in pieces. She never got her story heard. So I made sure someone would, even if it wasn't hers. Arya's voice was quiet. Revenge is never clean. And justice without truth is just more violence. They parted without a handshake. Without malice. But also without closure. Spring came. Arya graduated early. Quietly, no stage, no ceremony. Rachel helped her secure a research internship abroad, a clean slate in Florence. Before she left, Arya mailed a letter. Just one. To Vermont. It read, "Meet me in Rome, June 4th, near the Spanish Steps. No expectations, just possibilities." Monroe read the letter in his tiny kitchen. For the first time in months, he laughed. Then he booked a flight. Rome was everything the past year hadn't been. Warm, anonymous, overflowing with beauty. Arya arrived first. She stood by the fountain, notebook in hand, watching strangers live. At exactly noon, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "You still hate olives?" She turned. He looked older, softer, realer. She smiled. "Only the black ones." They sat, they talked. Not about the past, but about books, films, food, art. It wasn't a rekindling, it wasn't a romance. It was a recognition of who they were, who they had become, and what they had survived. That night, Arya took his hand. "I don't know where this goes," she said. "Neither do I," he replied. "But I want to walk there with you." He squeezed her fingers. "Then let's get lost together." Thank you for watching Beneath the Schoolgirl Blouse. If you're drawn to mature love stories, emotional, complex, and tinged with forbidden sparks that make your heart race, then welcome to the Mature Love Stories channel. Here, we tell tales of imperfect yet honest relationships, feelings that are hard to name but universally felt, and love stories that may never be complete, yet stay with you forever. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts. Every time you connect with a story, it gives us the drive to keep creating more mature love stories, where love knows no age, no rules, and no boundaries, only truth, only emotion.